Good day to you all and to all Catholics out there. This is Sergio Becerra II, and welcome back to my channel. So, as of Wednesday, August 28th, 2025, shock and horror struck America as an active shooter shut up a Catholic school, the Annunciation Catholic School in Minneapolis, Minnesota. The perpetrator that caused the shooting was a 23-year-old male who identified as a female who went by the name Robin Westman, real name Robert Westman. So before I begin laying out the facts of what took place, let me just say this is like the most horrific shooting we have ever seen. But this isn't the first time, however, we've seen a school shooting at a Christian school. For some of you may remember the 2023 shooting at a Presbyterian school in Nashville, Tennessee, in which the shooter, a biological female that identified as a male. Once I go through the facts of what happened at the Annunciation Catholic School, that's where I'm going to start talking about a trend that's like going in circles regarding these shootings. And it's not just Christian schools, it's just about any school you can imagine. But this is like the most horrific thing ever. And what's also infuriating to me as a Catholic, it's just we're just seeing so much anti-Christian, especially anti-Catholic bigotry from liberal politicians, which I will be calling them out on. So let's just go ahead and lay out the facts, which I have on my phone, which I did put on my Facebook account. So I'm going to go ahead and start it. The facts about the Minneapolis school shooter. Fact number one: Robert Westman, shooter of the Annunciation Catholic School in Minneapolis, Minnesota, now dead at age 23. Fact number two: in 2019, Robert Westman legally changed his name to Robin Westman at age 17, now identifying as a woman. Fact number three: Westman admits that he was inspired by other school shooters such as the Denver, Uvalde, Sandy Hook, Parkland, and Nashville shooters, and the would-be assassin Thomas Matthew Crooks that tried to kill Donald Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania in July of 2024. So Westman has had an obsession with other shooters. And it's not just being inspired. This also lays out the fact that Westman is literally mentally ill. And we've already seen pictures of what he looks like, and you can tell he had mental illness in his face. Fact number four: Robert Westman had a handwritten manifesto translated in Russian talking about his plan. Thanks to the use of AI, that manifesto has now been translated into English. Yeah, just like with the Nashville shooter, Robert Westman, not Robin Westman. His real name is Robert Westman, even though he identifies as a woman, but really a man. He had a manifesto, which so far it has not been released to the public. But if you're on X/Twitter like I am, someone has already posted that manifesto. And just like I said, by the use of AI, it's been translated into English. Now, I only read like the first part of that manifesto, and And it's pretty dark. Like the first part is already dark because he's asking a classmate back when he was in high school about what would you do if I were an active school shooter going about shooting up the school and hurting others. And the classmate, which was a female classmate, like felt freaked out and scared. Even he says he this girl didn't look comfortable for what I asked, but then laughed it off. Is what he did, which Westman had said. Yeah, so there's a manifesto. If you're on Twitter/X, just go to the search bar and type in the Minneapolis school shooters manifesto, and it there's like a long thread which you can read it. I didn't want to read it like all of it, just the first half of it, and just like what I just quoted from what Westman said, like that's enough for me. So yeah, he had it translated in Russian by his own handwriting, not by a computer, his own handwriting, therefore with a pen. Translated in Russian, but now with AI, it was translated into English. And there's even sketch drawings of him. There's one where it shows Westman like standing in front of a mirror, and when he looks up, he sees the devil staring back at him. So not only was he mentally ill, you can tell he had demons within him. Continue. Fact number 5. Robert Westman had legally purchased an AR-15 and had multiple magazines for it. If you're on TikTok, like I am, now I've seen his videos that were posted on X/Twitter with multiple magazines for that particular gun, which I will get to into what I'm reading right now in just a moment, which is the next fact I'm about to read. Fact number 6, Westman had writings on the loaded magazines from For the Children, Where Is Your God, Kill Donald Trump, Kill Trump, Israel Must Go, and other anti-Christian slurs on them. You can tell Westman was a hardcore liberal. Now, I don't mean bringing up my political beliefs. Yeah, I'm a conservative, a constitutional conservative, but registered as a Republican. And yes, I did vote for Donald Trump 3 times in 2016, 2020, and in 2024. And by the way he put writings on these magazines, you know he had hate within him. Even what I'm about to get to later, showing just how much full of hate the Democrat Party really has, especially towards Christians and Christianity in general. Fact number 7, Westman had mapped out the whole school, which turned out he used to go to as a kid. So Westman used to go to that same school as a kid. So no doubt he was raised as a Catholic, but from what I've been reading to you right now, from what he admitted online, which I just quoted, yeah, you know, yeah, zero. I mean, not zero up. He has total hatred for God. He has total hatred for Christianity. He has total hatred for children. And in that uh, TikTok clip that was posted on X/Twitter, it shows him giving the middle finger to these kids, like on his phone, while laying out the magazines on his bed, which the fake news liberal media won't even bring up, won't mention, nor even show, just to show how much hate he had. Not just for Christians, not just for children, but as for his left wing views, how much he hated Donald Trump, how much he hated Israel, and the slurs, whatever those slurs were on those magazines. I could, I couldn't even imagine what they said. Even if I knew what they said, I'd probably be infuriated. Fact number 8. On Wednesday, August 27th, 2025, Robert Westman opens fire. Oh, I'm sorry. It was the. Okay, I must apologize. I misspoke earlier about the date of the shooting. It was August 27th. I deeply apologize. I thought it was the 28th. I forgot today's the 29th, and I'm thinking of, I don't know why I was thinking of Thursday, so I apologize. So it was August 27th, which was on a Wednesday. I apologize for what I had said in the beginning, laying out the date. Fact number 8. On Wednesday, August 27th, 2025, Robert Westman opens fire on Annunciation Catholic School, killing 2 kids, ages 7 and 10, and wounding 17 others. Fact number 9. Robert Westman was later shot and killed by Minneapolis PD. So he was gunned down and killed and died on site at the school, which we have seen in past shootings. Fact number 10. Robert Westman, no doubt, had mental health issues, and his parents didn't even see the signs. So there's no doubt his parents didn't even know that he had mental illness. And after what I just described from his social media posts, especially on TikTok, that should have been one big red flag. There were warning signs, so I don't know how his parents missed that. So I know the authorities are going to probably question his parents, even though the gun was bought legally. But how did they miss this? And I'm wondering, like we've seen from past shootings, which we all know they had mental illness themselves. Did did any of these people go to like a psychiatrist or any psychiatric help? Did they? And if these people did, which I'm starting to believe that Westman did, and that these people, I mean, these shrinks, these doctors probably said, these people are fine, therefore let go. And then before you know it, any tragedy strikes. So now, if he had been seeing help and they just said there's nothing within him, then these people, that these doctors, these psychiatrists, psychiatric people need to be held accountable. And if there was any medication he was on, that's going to be another question. But they are going to be questioning his parents. I hope they are, because FBI Director Kash Patel is already labeling this as an act of domestic terrorism. And I was just reading right now that Bishop Robert Barron came out pushing back against Mayor Jacob Frey of Minneapolis for criticizing the call for prayer by the parents and everybody else within the church. The mayor criticized us all we ask just for asking for prayer and peace, praying for these poor souls. 2 of them now gone, 17 others hurt, and I hope they make a full recovery. So far, I haven't watched the news lately regarding the what other details have occurred. As far as I know, only 2 kids are dead, ages 7 and 10, and it's just like really horrific. And yet the mayor is saying this ain't prayer ain't the answer at the moment. Prayer is not the solution. That is what he said. And it's people like me with faith really do anger me. I gotta be careful what words I have to say because I know it may sound like I'm cursing. Now to my conclusion, which I have written. The United States has a mental health crisis, not a gun crisis. The state of Minnesota has red flag laws, and let me tell you something about red flag laws. They are like the most stupidest things ever enforced and imposed, especially on law-abiding citizens who end up getting punished in the end for rightfully purchasing a firearm, and before you know it, you're going to get ridiculously ratted out by whoever, probably like a neighbor or friend, that you have a firearm which you haven't even used yet, and all of a sudden you have a cop show up at your door. And who knows if it's going to get confiscated even though you haven't done anything with it yet, especially after buying it legally, which I'm going to get to at the end uh, in regards to gun rights in the United States. The state of Minnesota has red flag laws. So how did they miss this warning sign, which is what I'm asking. How did the state of Minnesota miss this? How did the city of Minnesota miss this? I mean, there were warning signs. So even from the parents, how did they not see this? In addition, he posted stuff like this on TikTok and no one didn't even report him. So like the videos that I had mentioned, laying out the um magazines on his bed, what he had written on them, TikTok didn't do a thing. And like nobody reported him to authorities or to the FBI. No one. I don't think he was ever reported to have his account taken down. Lastly, on his last TikTok video before he shot up the school, he has targeted he has a target he has a target practice poster in his room with a picture of Jesus taped to the head of the poster. That is what I saw in that TikTok clip when he was laying out the magazines with everything written on them. He even had a target practice poster with the image of Jesus' head taped on the head of that target practice poster. That should tell you enough that he has zero respect for faith and for Christ himself. Lastly, in my conclusion, persecution of Christians is real, especially on Catholics, is on the rise and at its peak, and it's about to get much worse. Hang on a second here. I'm going to tell you all something here. As sad as it sounds to what happened to these poor kids, but what still infuriates me is the amount of left wing, anti Christian hate and bigotry towards Christians. And we are seeing it. It's not just in the United States, it's all over the world. I mean, I can go on and on that Christian persecution is alive and well. And it's been going on since the time of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And it hasn't stopped. As a matter of fact, I'm going to read a quote from the Bible, which I have with me. The Gospel of Matthew, chapter 10, verse 22. And you shall be hated by all men for my name's sake, but he that shall persevere unto the end, he shall be saved. Yeah, and I believe from this verse, this is what we're actually seeing, which I may talk about in a later video if I ever get the chance in one of my Bible study videos. So may talk about this exact verse, even in reference to what I'm talking about right now regarding the shooting. But here's the thing regarding Robert Westman, not Robin Westman. Now, even though he had hatred for Christians, especially children, and especially what we've seen in his political views regarding Donald Trump and Israel, this man has hate like no other. And he's probably not the only one. And since he identified as a woman, in the end, still, transgenderism is still a form of sodomy. You heard me correct. Transgenderism is in fact a form of sodomy. So, for example, since he identifies as a woman and he falls in love with a biological man that has not transitioned but remains the same, it's still been considered sodomy because in Leviticus 18:22, what does God tell Moses? A man shall not lie with another man; it is an abomination. And 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 it's not just in the United States where we're seeing this kind of thing. No doubt, it's happening all over the world. And as I have said, we are seeing left wing, anti Christian hate and bigotry from liberals. As a matter of fact, I'm going to find one tweet in particular. Give me a moment. That really set me off. Wait a minute. Let me read this. Wait a minute. I think this is it right here. This is from Jen Psaki, who used to be the press secretary under Joe Biden. Now works as a, I'm not kidding, nothing but a paid propagandist for MSNBC. This is what she said. This was from 2 days ago. Prayer is not freaking enough. Prayers does not end school shootings. Prayers do not make parents feel safe sending their kids to school. Prayer does not bring these kids back. Enough with the thoughts and prayers. You have no idea how much this is infuriates me. This is an example of a liberal, anti-Catholic bigot. Zero hate for Catholics. Zero hate for Christianity in general. The next one, here we go. Also from 2 days ago. So this is probably shortly after the first one. When kids are getting shot in their pews at a Catholic school mass, and your crime plan is to have National Guard put mulch down around DC, maybe rethink your strategy. Okay, I'm pretty sure she's referring to President Donald Trump. Because the president currently is right now getting criticism for doing actually the right thing, cleaning up crime in the nation's capital. Now, I'm not no law expert, but I know the president has the power to use the National Guard to clean up crime at all costs. Let me reread this tweet again. When kids are getting shot in their pews at a Catholic school mass, and your crime plan is to have National Guard put mulch down around DC, maybe rethink your strategy. So she's saying president's like wasting time just sending the National Guard into DC and not even thinking about the kids. That is what she's thinking. Well, did any of us even suspect this was going to happen? And here's the thing: even though I do YouTube part time, but even myself, I work part time in a warehouse, which I'm not going to even say where I work. But Jen Psaki is nothing more than a paid liar by MSNBC. And what also infuriates me more, that even liberal news outlets like CNN, without even criticizing the shooter, but yet defending Westman, including the trans community, because he was trans. Instead of like even thinking about these poor kids that have lost their lives, they'd rather defend the shooter just for being trans in order to protect the trans community. I know I sound like I repeated myself. They mainly focused on Westman's pronouns. I don't know what his pronouns are, and I don't care about pronouns. The only thing real that Westman is a real man, a 23-year-old man now dead. And I'm not really happy for what I've had to read. Look, as much as I didn't want to read these tweets, especially what I wanted to get to, the big one, but after reading this one that was a follow up by Jen Psaki in the same day, criticizing the president, I find it ridiculous. Now, I know I'm looking at other articles on my phone, other posts from X, but I'm sorry, but there's some other things that are just driving me crazy. But next thing I wanted to point out, from other sources that I've also read from X, there was a one post of uh, there was one tweet that was posted. I don't remember the name. So it turns out, way before this even happened, that both Catholic and independent schools, probably charter schools, which are independent schools that are no connection to typical school districts, had asked Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota for funding to provide security for these schools in case anything were to happen. It never happened. Walz didn't provide any funding, never delivered. The thing was, this was 2 years ago. And in my personal belief, Walz has blood on his hands. He should have listened and provided the security. Instead, I think this was a few months ago, or I don't remember, but he had signed a bill into law turning the state of Minnesota into a trans refuge in response to President Donald Trump, who was fighting against biological males pretending to be women so that to prevent them from ever using women's restrooms and fighting. I mean, not fighting, playing in women's sports. And what we've seen so far in almost 8 months since Trump's been in office, there's been a lot of resistance to any executive order that the president has put out. And from what I understand right now, Trump has threatened to defund states from any federal aid that allows this. And yet Trump gets taken to court for it. Well, how about for all these left wing governors, especially mine here in California, Governor Gavin Newsom, how about not let biological men in women's restrooms and let them play in women's sports? I mean, it's just getting out of control. And like I said, Governor Walz has blood on his hands because he didn't provide any funding. Now, let's move to Mayor Jacob Frey of Minneapolis, who I just mentioned recently earlier on in this video, that he criticizes prayer when we're all asking for thoughts and prayers for these two kids that have lost their lives and 17 others that were wounded. Instead, focuses on fighting back against criticism against the trans community when in fact Westman identified as a woman, therefore defending Westman at all costs. And I just mentioned an article from my Facebook page that Bishop Robert Barron pushed back against the mayor. Uh, just a trip down memory lane, history would be the big target here. This is the same Jacob Fry that back in August of 2020, this exact month of which I'm talking about, this was 5 years ago in 2020, and this exact same month, which is now coming to an end, by the way, cried like a woman in front of a gold casket at the funeral of the dead drug addict and criminal George Floyd, which later sparked riots, not just in Minneapolis by burning down the whole city, but other parts throughout the nation. And I have no doubt he will not shed one tear for these two kids. Why? Because they're Catholic. He won't shed a tear for other people, no doubt other students, because they're Catholic. I'm gonna point out something here. Like after reading that one verse in the Bible, you know why left-wing politicians, liberals, hate Christians, especially Catholics and Christianity in general? Easy. Because people like me and everybody else, and it doesn't matter what Christian denomination you're in, we believe and pray to a higher being, and instead of so-called praying and worshiping left-wing politicians who think they're bigger than anybody else and act like they're gods themselves. People like Tim Walz, people like Jacob Fry, people like Jen Psaki, who I've mentioned. Because people like us believe and pray to a higher being that knows when to give us hope. That's why we know when to have a heart. People like Jacob Fry does not have a heart. People like Jen Psaki don't have a heart, nor a soul, because we believe in something that'll give us hope and happiness and peace. Not pray and worship to evil people within the government and the media because they act like they're gods themselves. They think the government is a religion. And like I said, left wing politicians and even so called journalists within the fake news liberal media act like they're gods and they expect us to worship them. Like they're the most superior intellectual people ever, which they're not. They're never right about anything, and yet they get crushed with real facts that don't fit their narrative. Because no matter what comes out of their mouths, they don't want to hear it. When we have to correct them by doing research, which you can do online from your computer or from your own phone. And yet it sickens me because they think we're intolerant because we don't believe what they say. Yeah, we get called bigots because, well, not just bigots, but haters because we are focused on this and not believing in these these ridiculous political philosophies and these immoralities like the entire LGBTQ. And we get called haters because we're too focused on the Bible. And we get called bigots and haters because we don't believe a thing they say. And they call themselves tolerant, which they're not. They claim they are, which they're not. They'll only say they're tolerant unless we start believing what they say. That's the only thing that'll calm them down. But no, when it comes to truth and reality, especially from the Bible, that's when they're not tolerant. Transgenderism has become a problem. It is nothing but mental illness, which we have seen recently. And not only that, even myself as a man of faith, as a Catholic, it's demonic possession. That's what that is. And it's people like um, Jacob Fry and Jen Psaki. And it's not just people like them. From what I've been reading on posts online, you got people commenting saying, "Oh, Jen Psaki saw the truth." That really infuriated me. I gotta be careful with one word I almost said, which is pissed off. But I know for people with faith, I know I gotta be careful with myself. And it's from one man who did two different comments saying she spoke the truth. Prayer does not help. The GOP won't focus on the real problems, but instead focus on prayer. We know when to focus on the real problem here. We have a mental illness problem plaguing the country, not a gun problem. We already have laws on the books to prevent stuff like this. We already have background check laws. Other laws that would prevent anybody from ever owning a gun. If you have a criminal prior, you cannot buy a gun. But Robert Westman, in fact, bought it legally. I don't know what the gun laws are in Minnesota, but nobody saw any red flags coming from him, which is what I don't get. Yeah, our Second Amendment is not the problem, it nor guns in general. It's a mental health problem we have here. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to mention some of other shooters that have caused other school shootings. You had two gunmen that shot up a school in Denver, and they both identified as transgender. The Nashville shooter, who went by the name of, I don't remember, was it Aubrey or Audrey? I think um I think Aubrey. I don't remember the first name. I know it started with an A. Last name Haley, who shot up the school that Presbyterian school in Nashville, Tennessee. A biological woman who identified as a man, and what was also, and just like we saw with this shooting, the left wing radical media actually ended up defending the shooter, which is the most insane thing. Um, I forget how many kids died in that school. I don't remember. It was like nine to 11 people. But then they started referring to the shooter as a victim, even though even though I'm going to just say Audrey Hale, Audrey Haley shot up that school. She shot up that school, but yet the fake news liberal media still defended her, all because she identified as a man. claiming claiming that she was a victim, even though police had to gun her down, which I don't understand. Why victimize someone when other children were gunned down and lost their lives? And yet and just like we saw with Robert Westman, you make him a victim. Exactly with Audrey Haley, they made her a victim. Like you, it's like the kids didn't matter anymore within hours after you focused on one person being a victim along with all these kids when she was the perp. So I don't understand how can you make someone a victim when they're the perpetrator? And you make this about gender transitioning. But I don't understand, especially from you liberals. I don't know what your logic is, but even though you have no logic. Now, Thomas Matthew Crooks, which I didn't know until hours after this particular shooting happened. Someone put out like a post of all these shooters, especially both the Denver shooters and the Nashville shooter, and now you got Thomas Matthew Crooks, who tried to take out Donald Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania, while he was doing a rally in July of last year. I didn't know that Crooks had identified as what you call a fluid gender or gender fluid individual. I don't know what that is because liberals make up new things like genders and sexual orientations all the time. I don't know what they are. I can't keep up with them. I only believe there's only two genders, man and woman. And there's only one sexuality, and that is being straight. Sorry, I don't. Sorry, sodomy I do not tolerate with. Oh yeah, one more shooter. That would be the shooter from Uvalde, Texas, that occurred. Um, I don't remember what year, but this was like around when Joe Biden was still president at the time. I mean, that shooting was like really horrific, and it still angers people that Uvalde PD didn't do anything and just let this shooter shoot up a whole just shoot up a whole school. And I don't know why they hesitated. I mean, that department still got a backlash, and I know that whole department. I think they all got fired, and I forget how many kids died. Oh yeah. Oh no no. No that no that's it. Yeah. So just about most of these shooters I just mentioned, they all identified as a different gender, especially with Thomas Matthew Crooks, who tried to take Trump out, who identified as a fluid gender. I don't know what the hell that even means. Then, of course, Audrey Haley, who shot up that Protestant school in Nashville, just like with Westman, had a manifesto, and to this day, we don't even know what's in that manifesto. And we know why. Well, even though this happened while Biden was still in office, and since the FBI had that manifesto, well, knowing how corrupt the FBI at the time was under Biden, we know they were acting politically because whatever was in that manifesto that Audrey Haley had would have destroyed a whole narrative. No doubt it would have been the same thing with Westman's manifesto, hatred for Christians. And we have no doubt in Haley's manifesto had a no probably no doubt a mention of racism in it too. And that's one thing I don't understand about Audrey Haley's case. Why would they make her a victim after being gunned down by police when she was the perp, taking down like 10 or so children? When she was the one who pulled the trigger and yet somehow made her a victim. I just don't get that. I can't even put that puzzle together. But But this shooting was just so horrific. And as I said, we have a mental illness problem, not a gun problem. And every time we pose like new gun laws, it only punishes the law-abiding citizen, making it harder to their right to self-defense, their right to buy a firearm, doing what is necessary to protect themselves. I mean, look, I feel bad for what happened to these kids. I'm not trying to make everything about guns, but I'm just saying we don't. It's not a gun problem we have. It's just a mental illness problem. And another thing is, like I said, transgenderism is a problem. It's a mental health problem, and it's demonic. And the thing is, we need to label it now as a form of mental illness, and we are seeing it a lot here in the United States. And Donald Trump recently, just a few weeks ago, put out an executive order reopening mental institutions. So when are we going to be seeing that? But again, we have a lot of left wing anti anti Christian, anti Catholic hatred and bigotry coming from these people, and everything I laid out from posts that were being commented by other people saying that prayer is not the answer. Then I quoted Jen Psaki. Then I've had to bring up the mayor of Minneapolis. Then bring up Governor Walz. Speaking of Governor Walz, I forgot to mention. Do you have any idea how close we were to having him as vice president if Kamala Harris would have won? Um, this reminds me. He said this during last year's election after Joe Biden had dropped out when he became the running mate for Kamala Harris. And as idiotic as Waltz is, he says he's friends with school shooters. I don't know what goes on in his head, but he is like one of the most dumbest governors, one of the most dumbest liberal politicians out there, and I can see the stupidity in his face. He actually admitted that. I don't know if that's true, but he said it. Uh, the things that come out of his mouth is just insane. I don't want to make it everything about Waltz, but he has lied about his past, especially what rank in the U.S. U.S. National Guard, which is part of the Army, by the way. He lied about his rank, of what rank he was, when in fact he never really got that rank. That's that's what I don't understand. What comes when it comes to the Waltz and what goes on in his head. And no matter what you throw at him, he'll just bring up the usual left wing identity politics. No matter what, as we all been saying. What if this is so what phobic? It's racist, it's sexist, misogynistic, yada yada yada. Uh, no matter what you throw at him, it's the same thing. But it's people like this, especially in the transgender community, that cannot accept any form of reality. And when it comes to any truth, they will not accept it, especially when it comes to reality. They claim they know the truth better than anybody, but no, they think their own opinions is the truth when that's not the truth. Reality, like I said, they reject it. They rather have an altered version of reality on Earth when it's literally nothing more than a fantasy world in their heads, a fantasy utopia that's developing in their heads, with which they want to build one day. It's nothing but la la land to them. All I say is it's just insane what these people think, say, and do, and yet they're showing their true hatred for Christianity. I know I said quite a lot in almost an hour. I just want to let you all know even though it's going to be uploaded onto YouTube, just in case YouTube does take it down because they'll probably say it's hateful. I will be uploading this same video onto my other channel on Rumble in case you can't find it. Under the same name, Sergio Becerra II, but my username on Rumble will be at Sergio Becerra B2, capital B with the number 2 right at the end. Same profile picture, everything, in case YouTube does something with this video. So, tell me what you think, what I had to say. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell and comment down below and tell me what you think. Well, that's it for now. And I mean, this was one horrific thing we had to witness, and a lot of the infuriating stuff that I've heard within the last 48 hours coming from the media and politicians, especially liberal politicians. Well, that wraps it up. Take care now. Have a blessed day. May God bless you all. Until then, see you next time. Take care now. Bye.